Consequences. Consequences of the Consequences of the Industrial Revolution, 1800 1914. The Industrial Revolution had far reaching social and political consequences for Europe. It marked the emergence of a new ruling elite, 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 elite. It marked the emergence of a new ruling elite of middle class industrialists, supplanting the landed nobility. It also gave rise to an entirely new social division, the industrial working class. As millions of rural laborers migrated to the towns to take up jobs in the factories. In the rapidly expanding industrial cities, workers were often forced to live in cramped and sanitary conditions, and outbreaks of disease were common. To protect themselves against exploitative, against exploitative, to protect themselves against exploitative employers, workers organized themselves into trade unions. These frequently led to confrontation with factory owners and the government. New ideas circulated on how to create a fairer society. Some argued for a more equal distribution of wealth, while others attempted to incite a workers' revolution. Fear of social breakdown led many governments to alleviate the worst effects of rampant capitalism, and conditions in some areas improved in the later 19th century. Working and living conditions. Conditions in factories were generally harsh and with so many workers. The traditionally close bonds between employer and employee were no longer possible. People labored 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, for very low wages. The machine set the pace, forcing people to perform repetitive tasks rapidly with little rest. Employers frequently hired women and children too, as cheap and skilled labor. The children were often younger than 10 years old, somewhat deformed by their work or suffered injuries from the machinery. Cities could not keep up with the demand for housing as workers continued to arrive from the countryside, and many were obliged to live in the severely overcrowded slums that grew up around the factories. Open sewers. Open sewers, open sewers, and a lack of clean drinking water often led to of epidemics of typhoid and cholera. Typhoid and and cholera. In the 1830s, the life expectancy of man in Birmingham, England, was slightly over 40 years. The natural environment also suffered, as factory smoke polluted the atmosphere in the cities. Workers' responses. The mechanization of industry caused some traditional skills to become obsolete and cost many craft workers their livelihood. their livelihoods. Some unemployed English workers turned their resentment on the machines that had taken their jobs and began attacking factories and machinery. They became known as Luddites, Luddites, Lu- Luddites, after the legendary character Ned Ludd. The first recorded Luddite attacks occurred in 1811. Workers began to form trade unions in the late 1700s. Unions were strongly opposed by governments and industrialists and banned in England between 1799 and 1824. Nevertheless, the movement grew. Trade unions often organized strikes for higher wages or better working conditions. In the 1830s and 1840s, a British working class movement called the Chartists campaigned for political equality and social justice, but its demands were ignored by Parliament. A Chartist organized general strike in 1842 involving half a million workers succeeded in stopping production across Britain. Middle classes. The great beneficiaries of the Industrial Revolution were the middle classes. Beneficiaries. 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 The great beneficiaries of the Industrial Revolution were the middle classes, business and professional people who enjoyed the general improvement in living standards and better diets and health care, leading to a huge increase in population. Industrialization made available many new products and provided unprecedented comforts and convenience to those who could afford them. The revolution also gave more political power to the middle classes, with business interests often dictating government policy. The application of steam power to the printing industry led to a dramatic growth in newspaper and popular book publishing, which in turn encouraged literacy and greater political participation. The new industries required engineers, clerical, and professional workers, thus expanding employment opportunities. Despite these benefits, many middle class people felt uncomfortable about the hardships suffered by workers and the rising inequalities in wealth caused by the Industrial Revolution. Some, such as the German thinker Karl Marx, to be replaced by some, such as the German thinker Karl Marx, argued that capitalism would soon be overthrown in a workers' revolution, to be replaced by a socialist system in which private property was abolished and the means of production were owned collectively. Others, called social democrats, preferred to see the worst effects of capitalism ameliorated through progressive taxation and the nationalization of key industries. Under pressure from campaigners for social reform, as well as trade unions, many European governments introduced legislation to make life better for workers. From around the 1840s, working hours in factories and mines were cut and wages rose. Housing was gradually improved. Child labor was banned, and compulsory Free State education was instituted throughout much of Europe. The leader of the Luddites, as shown in an engraving first published in May 1812. Timeline 1799 1824, trade unions are banned in Britain. 1833, Britain's Factory Act restricts the use of children in factories. 1846, repeal of the Corn Law in Britain ushers in an era of free trade. 1880, 1889, a social welfare system is introduced in Germany. 1909, 1910, national strikes by rail and postal workers in France. Now we are going to read a piece about conspiracy theorists. And this time we're going to go on with Nibiru, Planet X. Nibiru, Planet X. But first, I'll do some dumbbells and then go on. Now, let's read some story about conspiracies. The one I just promised to you. Nibiru, Planet X. Nibiru, Planet X. Let's check if that's a correct way of pronounce Nibiru. 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 Nibiru, Planet X. An artist's impression of the possible ninth or ninth. Let me check that for you. Ninth or ninth. Ninth. An artist's impression of the possible ninth planet in the solar system, with the orbit of Neptune around the sun shown in the distance. The search for Planet X has occupied the minds of both the most accomplished astronomers and the most fervent conspiracy theorists. This is a possible image of Nibiru, the Planet X. Again, how do you pronounce his name? Nibiru? Is that correct? Nibiru, okay. Stories of great space cataclysms are a staple of both literature and science. Literature and science. Staple. Stories of great space cataclysms are a staple of both literature and science. Some of it is good old-fashioned folklore passed down through the generations. And some is scientifically accurate work that's been studied for decades, such as the generally accepted theory that a massive asteroid impacted the Yucatan coast, the mass extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs. But there are also a number of people who have seized on the alluring idea of a hidden planet or asteroid lurking out there in the darkness to advance their own conspiracy theories, sell books, or set themselves up as modern day prophets. So there are many words here that I would like to know the meaning. For example, alluring, which I think is attractive or captivating. Captivating, alluring means atractivo, yeah, attractive, appealing. Have seized on the alluring idea. Seize on, aprovechar, seize upon. A great tennis player will seize upon his opponent's mistakes and use them to his own advantages. Okay. Uh, and some is scientifically accurate work that's been studied for decades, such as the generally accepted theory that a massive asteroid impact in Yucatan caused the mass extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs. But there are also a number of people who have seized on the alluring idea of a hidden planet or asteroid lurking out there, lurking out there in the darkness to advance their own conspiracy theories, sell books, or set themselves up as modern day prophets. The Nibiru conspiracy theory falls squarely into that last category. Every few years, tabloid articles and pseudoscientific prophecies seem to hail the coming of a planet sized object in a distant orbit that will impact Earth at a time only they know for sure, a time that never seems to arrive. Thank you, Mano Santa. ¿Cómo estás, amigo Mano Santa? Thank you so much for being here, amigo Mano Santa. While Nibiru, the name often given to that object, is a different concept from that of Planet X, the two are often lumped together and used as interchangeable terms. One is an actual scientific theory that has been proposed by great minds in astronomy and meticulously studied over the span of decades. The other is a fantastical concept of a woman who claimed to have been experimented upon by aliens, working from a book written by a supposed scientist and linguist who actually had no background in either. Determining the differences between the two is a useful way to practice scientific skepticism, as well as to introduce critical thinking concepts into story that often gets hyped far beyond its importance. The story of Nibiru. The idea of a large, undiscovered planet lurking beyond a planet Neptune has fascinated astronomers for over a century. In fact, even before Neptune was discovered in 1846, scientists believe a massive object must be responsible for the irregularities in the orbit of seventh planet Uranus. They saw deviations in its trajectory that seemingly only could have been caused by the gravity of something extremely large and close. In 1906, American astronomer Percival Lowell began searching the skies for an object he called Planet X, with the X signifying unknown, rather than the number 10, as Pluto hadn't been discovered. Lowell's search, along with the investigation of a number of other astronomers, proved fruitless, even after Pluto was found, as the former planet wasn't big enough to be the source of Uranus' anomalous orbit. No other trans-Neptunian object was ever found that would fit the description needed. It's very common for pseudoscience to attempt to explain something that science can't. So it shouldn't be surprising that a series of cranks, fake prophets, and others rushed into the void left by the non discovery of Planet X. In the mid 1970s, when it was becoming clear that Pluto wasn't the large object past Neptune that had been hoped for, another and pseudo historical scholar named Zechariah Sitchin made up his own explanation. His 1976 book, The 12th Planet, deposited a massive planetoid depicted in Sumerian mythology as the cause of a number of mass extinctions on Earth and gave it the name Nibiru, based on his own translation of an unknown word found on a cuneiform tablet. Cuneiform, that's a word that I don't know how to pronounce, so let me look it up. Cuneiform, 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 on a cuneiform tablet. At no point has any reputable scientist or astronomer confirmed that Sitchin's grasp of the Sumerian language was rudimentary, and it's likely that he mistranslated the tablet he was working with. Ilmano Santa, good night, Sapira. What are you reading for today? Hopefully, it's an excerpt from my favorite newspaper, the Super Cholo. Oh no, Mano Santa, I'm reading what you can see in the title of this live transmission. So I'm reading it right now about the story of Nibiru planet. There you go. And some minutes before, I was reading something about the Industrial Revolution. So if you play it back, perhaps you could join me with the reading of that piece of historical moment. Let's get back to this. But none of those objections made any difference to Sitchin's growing fan base, who readily bought a seemingly endless series of books about the secret goings on in history and astronomy. One of Sitchin's most vocal fans was a woman named Nancy Litter, a self described psychic and telepath who claimed to have been kidnapped and experimented upon as a child by aliens from Zeta Reticuli, also the home of David Icke's reptoid fighting gray aliens. Leda had started the website Zeta Talk in 1995 as an early hub of discussion about aliens, UFOs, and conspiracy theories. Around that time, as the Hale Bopp comet was approaching its closest distance to Earth, Leda put forth a shocking theory on Zeta Talk that Hale Bopp was actually being used as a diversion from the real threat to Earth, which was a 12th planet, making it once every 3,400 years approach. Hale-Bopp is nothing more than a distant star and will draw no closer, Leader wrote on the site on 6th August 1995. The 12th planet, a true messenger of death, will not even get the attention the fraudulent Hale-Bopp is getting today. That's because it's a real threat, not a diversion. It's diversion or diversion? Let me clear that up. Diversion? Diversion, yeah, I was pronouncing it well. This was the first of dozens of posts she made about the Hale-Bopp fraud she felt was being pulled on us by NASA and the scientific establishment. So here there's a photo of astronomer Percival Lowell began searching for the mysterious planet X in 1906. You have here Percival Lowell. There you go. Percival Lowell. Benefits. That's right, Mano Santa. That's right. Who would do anything to keep the people from learning, to keep the people from learning the truth for fear of panic. The theory caught on with the conspiracy theory media of the time, making Lita a radio star and raising her profile to the point that when she declared that Nibiru would hit the Earth around 15th May 2003, it made mainstream news. 2003 or 2012 or 2017. The day 15th May 2003 came and went without the cataclysm Nancy Leader had spent almost a decade predicting. Rather than abandon the Nibiru conspiracy theory, she doubled down, saying the date she'd thrown out was merely a bit of disinformation designed to fool the establishment. There's a new word here for me. She doubled down. What's the meaning of double down? Let me look it up for you real quick. Double down. Double down means redoblar la apuesta. The blackjack player took the risk of doubling down. Obstinarse, redoblarse, entercarse. That's also double down. So she doubled down, se entercó, saying the date she'd thrown out was merely a bit of disinformation. Okay, she then claimed that only she knew the real end of days date, thanks to Setons who continued to communicate with her, and that giving out the real date would only allow the establishment to keep citizens from fleeing to safety. As with, as with most other conspiracy gurus, Lida gave out a torrent of implausible and unverifiable claims to bolster her writing. Bolster means bolster is dar apoyo, apoyar. Okay, to bolster her writing, giving it the appearance of profundity. Profundity. Prof. How do you pronounce profundity like that? Profundity. 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 Profundidad. The profundity of the young widow script was unimaginable. Regardless, Nibiru was sucked into the frenzy of conspiracy theories and mythology surrounding the Mayan calendar. 2012 phenomenon. El Mano Santa, redoblar esfuerzos, o sea, poner más de sí mismo, double down. Very good, Mano Santa. Thanks for joining me. And you can also look those words up in your dictionary so we can both learn together. What else? I'm about to finish. I'm about to finish, okay? Despite Mayan Sumerian mythology being completely different, Nibiru fits well into the hazy beliefs of people who thought the world was ending simply because people they trusted told them so, and the establishment didn't. Here we have the conspiracy theorist Nancy Litter argued that the Hale Bopp comet, here you can see the Hale Bopp comet, which passed by Earth in 1995, was being used as a distraction from the real danger of the 12th planet. Again, continuing what conspiracy theorists thought was a massive cover up, NASA and the science establishment swore up and down that Nibiru wasn't real and that there was no actual Mayan prophecy about anything happening on 21st December 2012. And they were right, as the 2012 phenomenon was a bust as well. It came back again in 2017 when a French astrologer and prophet named David Meade threw out 23rd September 2017 as the date that the Bible and an alignment of stars foretold of Nibiru crossing Earth's path. It didn't, so Meade threw out more dates in 2017. Then again for 23rd April 2018, they all came and went. Meanwhile, evidence that Nibiru or Sitchin's 12th planet exists continues to be elusive, kept from us not by a conspiracy but by basic science. We still don't know the source of the gravitational irregularities in Uranus' orbit, though they likely are caused by a long ago impact pushing the planet onto its side and having its axis point almost directly at the sun. And scientists continue to scan the skies for objects either past Neptune or whose orbits take them close to Earth. But the constant drum bear prophecies, Trump bear, what's the meaning of drum bear? Drum bear. Drum beat? Drum bear. Drum beat. Drum beat. Drum beat means redoble, porfía, empecinamiento. Redoble, porfía, drum beat. Here's a word for you guys who like to learn new words, to catch up new phrases. Drum beat. Drum beat. But the noise, right? But the constant drumbeat of prophecies and conspiracies regarding the massive planet that only a few rogue scholars know about. Rogue. Rogue, what's the meaning of rogue? Rogue, granuja, pícaro. Rogue, granuja, pícaro. Rogue students or rogue scholars know about has nothing to do with this real scientific research and everything to do with making money out of the scientifically illiterate. Hermano Santa, cada 60 años, señor, no viviremos para verlo. Amazing, don't you think? Oh, yeah, Hermano Santa. And here's a picture. Conspiracy theorists merged beliefs about Nibiru with the supposed predictions of the Mayan calendar that the world would end on 21st December. So according to this Mayan picture, the world was supposed to be finished in 2012. But right now we are 2025 and nothing has happened yet. Well, that was it. Thank you so much, guys, for being back there. Thank you, Mano Santa, for your support. And I will see you tomorrow, Mano Santa, to have another pleasant readings. El Mano Santa, Donald Trump no más conozco. Me too, my friend. Me too. See you tomorrow.